Welcome back for the first session. We are privileged to have with us Mr. 𝐒𝐲𝐻, Managing Director, Winner Group, India, chairing the first session. To say a few words about Mr. 𝐒𝐲𝐻 is a lie, but nevertheless, I'll try. Mr. 𝐒𝐲𝐻 brings more than a decade of impactful experience from his tenure at 𝐄𝐝 India. He is currently leading sustainability initiatives focused on circular economy packaging, specializing in reusable pallets and crates. And beyond the boardroom, he is a member of Zonal Railway Consultative Committee called ZRUCC. He also lends his insights to advisory panels at IIT Belapur and CIPET. It's a privilege to welcome you on board, sir. Welcome on board. A warm round of applause for Mr. 𝐒𝐲𝐻.
Good morning, all. It's a true pleasure to welcome you all what promised to be a highly insightful session on mobilizing green finance for sustainable supply chain transformation. As we gather in this time of unprecedented growth, it's impossible to ignore the dual imperative facing business today. The urgent need for a sustainable practices, undeniable power of finance to drive that change. This is very imperative, sit at the heart of CII vision, a vision committed to fostering a globally competitive, sustainable, and inclusive Indian industry. CII has been a pioneering force advocating for green growth, promoting resource efficiency, and building a robust ecosystem for sustainable business practices across sectors. The summit overarching goal is to accelerate India's green leap towards net zero supply chain. We are here to explore how we can collectively decarbonize our industrial and logistics sector, not just meeting global standards, but setting new benchmark in sustainability. Today's session especially delves into how we can unlock and deploy green finance to achieve this ambitious supply chain transformation. We will be looking at, on the 3 points, the why, the compelling business and environment case for integrating sustainability deeply into supply chain operation. The second part is what, the understanding the diverse landscape of green financial instruments for green loans and bonds to innovative blended finance models and how they can be tailored for supply chain specific needs. And most importantly, the how, the practical strategies, best practices, and collaborative approaches to overcome barriers, especially for critical stakeholders like SMEs, and accelerate the flow of capital towards a greener, more recycling supply chain. We have a truly distinguished panel with us today, each bringing a unique and invaluable perspective. Let's dive right in. I invite our esteemed panelists to join me on stage. Mr. 𝐶𝐞𝐿, I pronounce your name right? Please. Is an associate partner at McKinsey & Company. He leads strategic initiatives focused on supply chain transformation, decarbonization, and digital operations. With deep experience at advising global clients across manufacturing, logistics, and consumer sectors, he brings a strong track record of delivering sustainable tech-enabled solutions. Welcome, 𝐶𝐞𝐿. Ms. Akanksha Sharma is the Vice President of Sustainability at MENA and SCO at DP World with over 18 years of experience. She has worked with Sterlite Technologies, World Economic Forum, Jubilant Food Works, Vedanta Resources, and UNICEF. Expertise in climatic strategy, ESG leadership, net zero strategy, climate finance, and decarbonization position. Please welcome. Mr. Puneet Modi is the Director of Global Supply Chain Analytics at Mondelez International. He is associated with Mondelez from past 18 years in various roles. He worked with L&T before Mondelez, expertise in global benchmarking, end-to-end planning, and commercialization. Mr. Puneet, welcome to the stage. Mr. Ankush Sharma is the head of supply chain at Rocket. He has 18 years of experience in various companies like Procter & Gamble, Danone, Parle Biscuit, expertise in end-to-end supply chain operations, supply chain operating model, network design, warehouse consolidation and mechanization, new product launches, and new supply origin setup. Welcome, Mr. Ankush Sharma. Welcome. Mr. Arpit Raj is the head of logistics and consumer service at Godrej Consumer Product. He is associated with Godrej Consumer Product from past 11 years in various roles of supply chain, expertise in logistic operations, inventory optimization, and digital transformation across large-scale network. We welcome Arpit. Shri 𝐿𝐴𝐚 is the President of Strategy and Business Development at Horizon Industrial Park. With over 3 decades of experience, he has worked with various organizations like All Cargo Logistics, Maki Group, Tata Motors, JM Finance, and others. We welcome 𝐿𝐴𝐚. Once again, good afternoon to all. This is a very interesting topic of Global Supply Chain Summit, and in that, India Green Leap Towards Net Zero Supply Chain. So we will start with Lady Power, Akansha. So Akansha, what is the potential of green finance in enabling sustainable supply chain transformation? What are the broader environmental and economic benefits of this transition?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, first of all, for having me here, and thank you, Ajay. I think it's very important, firstly, to understand, what green finances can actually enable towards supply chain transformation, because there's a huge wide spectrum that it covers, right from decarbonization initiatives to capital movement towards efficiency measures to green vessel, again, alternative fuel-based enablement. So I think there's a very wide spectrum. But then at the core of green finances lie the strategy which enables organizations to actually move finance and capital towards enablement of sustainable solutions. And there is a whole set of examples. For example, DP World, if I talk about, we have very recently released green bond and blue bond. Green bond was of the size of $1.5 billion. It's listed on London Stock Exchange and Nasdaq Dubai both. The coupon rate was 5.5%. Now, what does it tell? It tells us the story of how an organization is actually enabling capital towards its goal of decarbonization, as we have identified very ambitious goals for ourselves for 2040 to be carbon neutral and for 2050 to be net zero. And various initiatives under decarbonization, including electrification of equipments, low carbon fuels, renewable energy supply, process efficiencies, all of these will be fueled by this funding sources. So there are ample opportunities, and also because of the fact that the companies are accelerating more and more towards higher sustainability ratings and scores, which enable easy access to this finance, green sourcing, green finance. Is a big enabler in this entire ecosystem to make sure that green sustainability is not just a far-fetched dream, and access to finance is possible because of various opportunities and the credibility basis the sustainability ratings. So that's one part of the thing. The other element here is also linked, there's green, blue, social impact linked bonds, sustainability linked bonds. So, there are various terminologies, but I think, for example, we have also invested in blue carbon ecosystems through a blue bond very recently of the size of $100 million. it is not necessarily about blue, but it's also that, there are a lot of decarbonization efforts that could be channelized through the same investment in finance, through nature-based solutions, through other ocean measures. One of our subsidiary companies, Unifeeder, which is mainly on vessel fleet, we are enabling some methanol-fueled vessels basis this investment solution that we have just channelized. So there are ample opportunities basis the access to finance solutions that are enabled because of green financing.
Thank you. So you just said about $1.5 billion for blue and green bonds.
For green bonds.
For green bonds. Excellent. That's a great start for this initiative by your company. So my next question is to Puneet. What are the practical sustainability initiatives that CPG companies can undertake, and how can green finance be supported?
Thanks, Ajay. So I think it's a very interesting topic on how can sustainability and finance be brought together, right? Sustainability nowadays is no longer a cash drag. It was thought to be a cash drag a few years back. But right now, I think sustainability and the company images go hand in hand. Sustainability is a core part of any supply chain's end-to-end strategy whenever they make one, right? So if you embed your sustainability strategies within supply chain, then it makes a lot of sense. The best part is, all right, so let me give you a simple example on what kind of sustainability practices can most of the CPG companies pick up. I'll pick up an example of Mondelez. So what does Mondelez do is, right from end-to-end supply chain, it has tried to implement sustainability initiatives. Like for example, for procurement, it does a lot of cocoa, palm, paper procurements, which are all decarbon or deforestation free, right? That's one for procurement. For manufacturing, there are a lot of solar plant implementations. There'll be a lot of GSC free utilities, just to ensure that your carbon emissions are kept to a minimum, right? Along with this, you will also do a lot of agreements with or power purchase agreements with the companies that provide renewable sources, just to ensure that you are able to meet your renewable energy targets. Now, these are some things that the companies implement. How do you use them in terms of getting your company ahead of rest of the market? Like for example, you would have seen a packet of Cadbury dairy milk, right? Not only in India, across the globe, we put in a logo saying that 100% sustainably sourced cocoa. Now what it does is, a small logo, most of the times people don't notice it, but a lot of people do. For the people for the consumers who really matter, or sustainability matters, it is one of the biggest driving forces to choose your product over the next competitor, right? This is what helps your companies get a small edge and put the brand image in the right way. And see, you put it on one product, it has a burn-off effect on rest of the other products also. This is what carries your company forward, right? See, in terms of financing, I don't think financing today with the availability of green bonds is an issue in implementing sustainability projects. Most of the companies, I don't think CPG companies really use green bonds, or it is very prevalent. I'll let the other panelists also talk about it. But I think a lot of other companies do, more in terms of ensuring that they put in green power, they put in solar power plants, they put in wind power plants. What the CPG companies do is they do a power purchase agreements with them, just to ensure that renewable energy is a core part of the sustainability targets that we would have called out to our investors as well as to the market, right? It is not the easiest across the globe for all the companies who are especially multinationals to ensure that you get the green power from the place where factories are based out of. So getting into a power purchase agreements with such renewable sources which have been made with green bonds are probably the best way to on how green bonds and green financing can be utilized.
Thank you, Puneet. So Puneet, just wanted to know, when you say green, so all these factories, you are sourcing electricity, or there are some solar panels also be installed in the factories?
There are quite a few.
Okay.
There are quite a few. In fact, one of the biggest factories that we have in Asia Pacific is in India itself.
Okay.
It sources 25% of the power with the solar plant which is installed within the factory. It does require an upfront cost, but most of the companies are able to manage that cost, and the paybacks are pretty good nowadays. So 5-6 years of payback. And probably after 5-6 years, the asset has depreciated, and the amount of money it gives back is significantly higher than any other. So, which is why I think making sustainability a part of your strategy helps you improve sales, helps you improve your image, and it also helps to reduce the cost, just to ensure that you're relevant in the market probably 10 years down the line.
Absolutely, great initiative. So my next question is to Arpit Raj. How can demand-driven planning reduces carbon intensity across the FMCG value chain?
Hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
So some of the other panelists spoke about effectively the importance of what initiatives can be taken up or what processes can be outsourced as far as sustainability is concerned. I think I would want to sort of add a small dimension to it. As much of the existing value chain, it is important for us to include sustainability to part of each and every facet of value chain. It is also important to us to ensure on what creates this waste in terms of where we can sort of try and minimize, which effectively reduces your overall carbon footprint. And some of these would be in terms of how do you ensure that your requirement of the concerned, say, fossil fuel, or the concerned diesel, or the concerned electricity, or any of the transportation which effectively becomes a part of your scope 3 emissions gets reduced. And I think that is where the planning comes much more important now more than ever. Why? Because in the last 10 years, we have seen a huge shift in quick com, and specifically the e-com. And 10 years back, usually the demand proliferation or the SKU proliferation, if you look at majority of the FMCG companies, Puneet is sitting here for Mondelez, is that majority of the companies would have very selected SKU categories, right? Because of the pressures on cost, as well as the demand in the market, and specifically because of the advent of e-com and quick com, what has happened is that the number of SKUs that we carry right now versus what we were carrying, say, 10 years back, has tripled. And effectively that leads to a lot of waste within the supply chain. In any waste, now all of these quick com not only comes with an additional SKU, they come with requirement on shelf life, they come with very stringent norms of when the project has to be rejected. And each of these rejections would effectively needs to be disposed. And essentially disposal happens, and that indirectly leads to, and majority of it happens in, say, cement kilns, and each of it results in a scope 3 emission. The same is true for when we talk about 10-minute deliveries, right? The frequency on deliveries have gone up, and hence basically what happens is that once your frequency goes up, the requirement of fuel, the requirement for secondary as well as tertiary transportation has gone up. And essentially that has also led to a lot of increase in terms of your emissions that your products are leading to in the same context than it was, say, 10 years back. So the focus essentially for us should be to try and see on how do you minimize the requirement as much in terms of forecasting, and to try and see if we can move to a much better way. And you see organizations now shortening the demand buckets from when we were, say, forecasting for, say, 3 months, now we are forecasting for, say, 10 days. We are moving to a weekly based forecasting. A lot of CPG organizations are doing that, which is to try and predict correctly what the actual consumer wants and effectively minimize the waste in the overall value chain from us to the final consumer. The same thing is true for, say, some part of logistics. So to try and see on how much or how do I reduce or get it right the first time, so that the amount of empty miles that a truck runs gets reduced. We had one such initiative which Punita and I we were talking about essentially on a similar forum from CII through a national digital freight exchange, where all of the CPG companies pulled in and said that let us try and reduce two things. Let us try and reduce costs, obviously, which is an important metric, but let us try and reduce the empty miles, which effectively would again come down to a scope 3 emission. So a lot of these things on what is, as much it is important to ensure that sustainable practice are ingrained in the value chain of an organization. I think an equally important part of it would also be is why do these particular processes or a particular waste gets created as a part of the value chain, and to try and minimize that so that the ultimate requirement on sustainability gets met or the emissions are low.
Thank you, Arpit. Mr. R.K. Narayan, how is Horizon positioning itself to attract a green finance in the supply chain sector?
Yeah, thank you. So, we actually see this whole green financing from a different perspective or from different objectives. One is, of course, getting a better pricing on the loans, and that started happening. The second is having a wider base of financiers or lenders, and I'm talking in the Indian context. And third is also, it's kind of a validation of the sustainability practices, etc., that you do, right? We keep assessing opportunities for green financing, both for stabilized assets as well as also for under construction assets. The lenders actually set up different parameters. So what we have done over the course of last 3 years is made a whole lot of our properties, let's say, green financeable, right? And since last 1 year, we've started taking green financing, particularly from, and they mostly come from, financial institutions or banks, which in turn are mandated by IFC or World Bank, through IFC, where they would have taken finance. So that component is actually increasing, and so how we have positioned ourselves is being ready, and if I may call it as a green ready, right? Meeting with certain KPIs as well. One, of course, is about getting all our parks certified. So I'm happy to say that all our 18, 19 parks, they're all certified and they're all platinum certified. The lending institutions requires you to be minimum gold or platinum. So we have that. That's number one. The number two is about also putting in requirements, because we are a real estate, right? We give properties on rent to different companies, be it 3PL, e-commerce, manufacturing, whatever. It's not just that whether we meet, but we also try and see that our occupiers also meet with certain basic minimum green requirements. So we do put in invariably across all our agreements with them the green lease clauses, which is about at least maintaining certain minimum level of green requirements, is also sharing, most important, the sharing data, which we do analyze, etc., and keep sharing it back with them as to how are they performing on different parameters of whether it's on energy efficiency or it's on water consumption or waste management, things like that. So that's the goal that we are trying to get into. So that's how we have prepared ourselves. As I said, in the Indian context, at least the actual action has been happening only since the last 1 to 2 years. Maybe in a similar forum 4 years back, we were talking of green financing, more on a what could be or in theoretical sense, not so much practical, though they were happening, but not so much. But it has started increasing. We ourselves have about 400, 500 crores of loan taken across different properties. And you gave example of, I think you gave example of international market. So similarly, in the industrial logistic field in Australia, for example, last year, 2 years back, we raised, Horizon is part of Blackstone. So I'm talking of the Blackstone's industrial business all across Asia Pac. We raised about 1.5 Australian dollars across stabilized assets. So that's been increasing. In fact, similar things have been happening in Japan and Korea and China. They wonder actually why is it not happening so much in India as they would like it to be. But I would say that it's beginning to happen.
Thank you. Naren Sahab, just my curiosity is, all this certification of gold and platinum, is it a push from Horizon or your customer is pushing you to get those type of buildings or warehouses? So where is the line, the
Well, I would say,
real story is?
I would call it stakeholders, and there are multiple stakeholders, obviously, in any business. One is within and one is outside. So first and foremost, in the global institutional capital, it's an increasing requirement by the LPs themselves, right? So Blackstone has capital. In India, they invest through Asia Fund or even Global Fund for that matter, but LPs, the investors are all over. So you have pension funds which have this requirement. Yes, one may say that, after Trump coming in, let's say this may have gone out of flavor, but let me tell you, it's not gone out of flavor. It's still there. At least institutional investors, which are pension fund, which have a fiduciary responsibility, they still ask for it. It's not just a check in the box. In fact, they're not so much bothered about as to what is your investment strategy, how are you going to make returns, etc., because that's kind of a given for large institutional platforms. But it's also on several other things like, how are you doing on the sustainability front? So that becomes a big part of the interaction. European investors are far more particular about this, I think, in general on sustainability and the different standards that they have. And in Asia also similarly, right? So one, LPs, the investors. Two, our own global framework, yes, adapted to Indian conditions. So we have a Blackstone sustainability ESG framework, to follow. And yes, you rightly said, even the occupiers also, some of the occupiers, many of them are multinational or European manufacturers or US manufacturers, not US, I mean APAC manufacturers coming in, and they first see one of their items is on due diligence is how are you doing on the sustainability front. They sometimes ask us, we go mostly for IGBC, for example, or we may go for 𝐈𝐧𝐝𝐻, but they also ask, are you going in for LEED? Because different countries have different parameters and frameworks. So we do go for that. One company, for example, has come and asked that, are we following EU taxonomy practices? So it comes from all over, tenants, occupiers, within Horizon, Blackstone system, LPs, investors.
Thank you. Mr. Ankush Sharma, how can business leverage the green finance market to drive sustainability and gain a competitive advantage?
So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. It's not an easy topic to share a lot of experience around, but I think as an industry, economy, individual, we need to build that knowledge with the experience, whatever we have so far, and we have to build on that going forward, because that's the strong need of an hour, where we as a country, accommodate almost 20% of the global population in India, and then, also uses 70% of the fossil fuel in our industrial consumption. So, when we say competitive advantage, it is from the perspective, how customer or, consumer sees that as a competitive advantage. Companies do a lot of actions which is in the direction of sustainability, in the direction of some point in time digitization. I'll say right now, the new digitization is the sustainability, which was earlier the digitization, right? But, whenever you do those actions, how companies, how consumers or customers see that as in value, that defines whether you are having that competitive advantage or not. To build that competitive advantage, right now, when we talk about sustainability, there are several levers, which needs a lot of support from green finance, and which I think Mr. Narayanan was talking about in terms of capital which is available. There are 3-4 big categories which we can see very recently have grown up in the solar market, renewable energies, which is actually supporting a lot in terms of building up energy efficiencies within the manufacturing environment, right? And it is never the case that you go just one directional using entire energy efficiency with one type of source. It is just about balancing in the dynamic environment where we see the global supply chain is also very disbalanced. You have to see the balancing and see what is the efficiency you are bringing it out, even if you have a combination right now of fossil, renewable, and other source of energies which is available. Ultimately, it will bring to your energy yields and energy efficiency, which will bring directly and competitive advantage. Definitely it is. Even if customer doesn't perceive it, it will get built into somewhere into your P&L if you work around that ratio, which can be used to produce any of the product. The other thing which comes is, your yield improvements. When you bring lot of, for us as a company, we do lot of buying of maize, which is, we are, I think, second largest buyer in the country in terms of buying maize from farmers, traders, and, FPOs. And I see that is also an area where, you need lot of yield improvements. And for that, do we have right level of seeds? Do we have right level of, technology which can help build those yields? We see a lot of maize is going into ethanol now, and do the farmers or FPOs are having those funds available easily, which can help them improve those yields? And that ultimately bring advantage not only for, the buyers or, the sellers, but overall industry in terms of additional crop which is available. Right now we are short of it, and we are doing a lot of imports also from different countries, right? The third part of it is, which is, we can say, CO2 and transportation. There, I think there is a lot of work which needs to be done. We are talking a lot about it, but I can share my experience. I've been trying from last couple of years to move from road to rail for certain shipments, but that ecosystem, which is, even if it is at slightly additional cost, it is not available right now. Means I'll not say it's not available, means it's not available anywhere. It is available on certain routes, certain corridor is being built in of, but your factories are not linked to those, right? You have last mile, first mile gaps which is being there any which way. So those gaps are still, putting up pressure in terms of maintaining those costs, right? You can pay a premium which can be seen as a value by consumer, but you can't pay a premium, which is no value to consumers, and also, it's not being utilized anywhere in the chain, right? So that as an area, I think we see a lot of talk about EVs, CNGs, but are those vehicles available when you want to hire, when you want to serve customers? So I think these are some of the areas where I feel this green financing can help. But what is the most important thing is that, whether when you talk about capital in some of the companies and good multinationals, Indian companies are always available. It's not that you do not have capital which is available. It is always about, the use of that capital and whether you are getting those returns which is being expected in the boardrooms, right? And for that, if we are talking about sustainability and want to leverage that as a competitive advantage, there are two important things. One is, we have to see the long-term value. We don't need to see a short-term horizon. We need to see more as a long-term value, and that is where your shareholders, investors needs to keep that patience in terms of the returns what they are going to get when they are investing in sustainability. That is one. And then the second comes to the consumers also. As a consumer or customer of those products, how are we ready to pay for those additional premiums, which will leverage this entire industry to boom? And most of the time you will see we as a corporate keep talking about this infra is not available, that infra is not available, this is what we want to do. When you talk the other side of the table, which is 3PL companies, infrastructure companies, they will say, they are never ready to pay that amount. And if you talk about the bank, they will say that there is nowhere the consumers market is ready where we can float that money for consumption, right? There are three different types of stories you will see. So I think if we really want to build that as a competitive advantage for the business, all these three have to come together. One is bank, other one is the company who are investing, and the third one is the consumers, means whether it is an institution or direct customer. And with that, definitely, you will always have an advantage to move on. But as early as the companies move into it and take acceleration there, which is, maybe a frog step there, that, okay, those companies will have an early competitive advantage. Longer run, whether this will remain a competitive advantage, we don't know. Means later on it may be a regulatory compliance comes in, government push comes in that you need to do it, and it no longer will be a competitive advantage. So I think that's how I see it. Yeah.
Thank you, Ankur. Just wanted to, from your this thought process, see, we have a perceived image for one organization. So because I'm a part of this committee of ZRUCC of Railway Committee, let me tell you, Railway in last 4 or 5 years, they have transformed very differently. They are looking for, the corporates to see, and their routes and everything has been really changed.
Yeah.
But again, there is a thought process, there is a perceived image we have, but I think they are changing a lot, and they are also trying in terms of, their part of, the movement and supply chain. But,
No, definitely.
क्या है कि एक, there is a thought process, like what we have for Indian Post, and then, so this is the thought process, but you have touched the railway, so that's why, as a part of, that advisory committee, suddenly it has sparked.
Yeah.
So it's just my clarification that has been a lot of change, and you will find in next 2-3 years, even from
No,
small,
I
small
completely
places,
agree
they will
on that
pick it
point.
up.
My
Because they are also changing the game.
No, fully agree. My point is not that it's not available, it's there. And we have also leveraged that, so we were, say, 4-5% in terms of share of rail, which is now 10-12%.
Yeah.
It has increased over last couple of years. We have increased that share of rail. But the point is the acceleration which we want, the
Absolutely.
scale which we want to achieve, it is not there. That was the whole point.
Yeah, yeah.
But definitely from service perspective, from timely delivery perspective, there is a lot of change
Yeah, yeah.
which we have seen on that level. Thanks.
Akansha, my question to you is, how can strategic investment and innovative green financing accelerates the decarbonization of global supply chains? And how has DP World has leveraged it?
I think access to green finance or capital is an ecosystem play. And I'll give you a very classic example of how DP World has leveraged it. So we were a principal host for COP28 in Dubai. And we advocated for this global movement of to minus 15 degree. Now, what does it really mean is, the frozen food, when its temperature is raised from minus 15 to minus 18 degree centigrade, it does not actually affect the shelf life or the quality of the food, but it does affect the CO2 emissions in a very big way. And to the quantum of about 20 million tons of CO2. And that's equivalent to about taking 400 cars off the road. So this move was evidence-based, research-based, and has been adopted by 60% shipping companies globally, and about 35% FMCG companies. So I think there's a big shift that can be led by innovation on technologies like these, and I think there's a lot of potential that, I'll give you another example of DP World's CO2 calculator. So what we have done is we have developed this in-house carbon calculator to give a more informed decision to our customers on multimodalism, their carbon footprint, and also route efficiencies. So I think that's a very big move in the direction of application of this finance, that how can, more information and awareness can be created on green deliveries and, when we talk about sustainable supply chains. Since we were talking a lot about rail, we are extremely focused on multimodalism and the road to rail transition, especially in a market like India, which is very promising from the rail perspective, and you would agree. So we have also come up with solutions for retail customers on rail, which are much more sustainable and is building a lot of traction. So these are some of the examples that I really wanted to share on the application of green financing, which is more innovation-led. And I think the scope is much wider on, what can we do beyond just renewable and the traditional practices of reduction.
So, Akansha, you said by reducing temperature or maintaining temperature, what you said, 20 million tons of can you elaborate that? What exactly this whole initiative was only a one time, or this has been going on?
Yeah, it's going on. Okay. So earlier frozen food was kept at minus 18 degree. The advocacy that we are doing is moved to minus 15 degree. Yeah.
Saving. Puneet, what are the initiatives of reducing scope of 1, 2, 3 emission, including suppliers, and how can green financing help? And one more is challenges of harmonizing global ESG reporting. So these are two questions, difficult questions for you.
Okay. All right. First, let's pick up the ESG one. See, okay, the answer is going to be slightly technical, so please bear with me. But I think there is a very important, or there is a very interesting conclusion to be taken out of it, right? Because there are a lot of acronyms. I might have to take some help from my notes. So, see, what is ESG? ESG is basically environment, social, and governance reporting for a company, right? It has become exceedingly important for companies to now start reporting ESGs, right? There's a lot of pressure from the investors, and this is more talking of the global perspective rather than just the India perspective, right? Because most of the ESG reports that come out are from a global companies on a global perspective. So they encompass all the places where they're working out of, right? There's a lot of push from the investors, there's a lot of push from the customers just to ensure that the way a company is working is in the right direction, right? It also helps to ensure governance within the company. It also helps to ensure that you are moving in a sustainable way and there are no sudden rabbits which jump out of the hat and which can disrupt the business, right? So this is one. However, see, ESG reportings right now are not the most easiest. Why? Because of two reasons. One is because of the specific requirements in various regions and the different frameworks which are available for reporting ESG, right? First, let's go to the regions, right? If a company, if it's an MNC company, there are different reporting requirements for Europe, for US, or rather Americas, and Asia, right? Now, for Europe, there are a lot of, okay, the ESG reporting is heavily influenced by the European Union Sustainable Finance Regulations and the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directives, right? So this is one complexity. For US, there is a lot of influence, and I think that a lot of pushes towards market returns. So it is influenced by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Board, so whatever framework they come up with. Asian countries, I don't think there is a specific, everybody's created one, but they try and follow the international guidelines which are available. So this is region-based. Now, after you cross the region hurdle, there are also at least 5 different frameworks in which you can have ESG reports, or you can publish your ESG reports, right? GRI is among the major one that you can publish. SASB, Sustainable Accounting Standard Boards, right? Not going into board technical analysis, but there are at least 5 different ways in which you can report. Okay. So one is region, the second is 5 different ways. What companies currently do is they figure out what works best for them. They combine all the requirements, or they rather pick up the region where they are prominently present and then use one reporting system to report it, right? Now, we all look at, now the interesting part, see, we all look at ESG reports as one more report which has come out. That's it. However, see, I think going forward, it is going to be as important as the financial reports come out. I'm not sure if you have seen any financial reports if it comes out in US, there are always CAGNY conferences after that, wherein the company CEOs sit and the analysts then predict the company's future earnings potential, the future share prices for the next 3-4 years. With the right reportings that ESG is using, I think they'll become equally important in the next 4-5 years, that along with the financial analysis, ESG reportings will also be utilized or scrutinized in the same equivalent way. I'll give us a very simple practical example. We were trying to benchmark or compare how does Mondelez do in terms of safety practices or in terms of safety KPIs, right? Extremely difficult. There's no way to figure out how does any other MNC do. But we had a look at the ESG reports, and there are very clear numbers in terms of safety, whatever, incident rates or lost time injury frequency rates. They're very clearly mentioned out in all ESG reports for major companies. So it becomes extremely easy for now you to benchmark and understand how are safety practices within various companies. And similarly, there are other numbers for water. There are numbers for how good a governance is, how sustainable procurement works within the companies, right? So once it becomes a regular practice, it is going to be extremely useful in terms of determining your share prices, the way companies look at it, and companies' future, right? But I think what is definitely required is a standardized, one common way of reporting ESGs. Hopefully it comes out pretty quickly. This first part of the question, I think I've taken too much of time. But okay, let me answer the second one also pretty quickly. So I think scope 1, 2, 3 emissions, most of the people would be aware of, right? Most of the companies work on scope 1 or scope 2 emissions, right? Because within our boundaries, right? We are all concerned as individuals with what is within our boundaries, right? But I think we ran a few numbers. 70–80% of our emissions come from scope 3, right? A quick one, I think, what the companies have started to look at is, see, it is pretty easy. I would not say easy, but it is still manageable in terms of working with your suppliers if you are ready to share your own technologies, your own thoughts on what you have done for enabling sustainability, right? The moment you start doing it, your suppliers also become or start becoming as efficient as you are in terms of sustainability practices, in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of distribution. So procurement, manufacturing, CS&L, or transportation and warehousing, these are the 3 major components where carbon is emitted or sustainability practices are required. Once you start working on these 3 and start sharing your practices or best practices with the suppliers, I think scope 3 is something that you can still bring under control.
Okay. Thank you. Arpit, how can green capital be channeled into reducing wastage and improving reverse logistic planning in the FMCG sector?
Okay, so I think a part of the question has been answered literally by, say, some of the panelists, but I'll still give it a shot. So in terms of reverse logistics planning, I think as some of the panelists said, right, the first advent is to try and sort of look at the mode of transportation itself. So majority of the CPG organization and the entire transportation works on diesel powered vehicles. So diesel powered trucks still fuels 90% of the transportation for the core reason that it supports cost and effectively while multimodal is a way for the future, effectively trying to pick it up for the last mile connectivity becomes very, very critical and becomes a linchpin or Achilles heel in the entire chain. The other part of it is that the bulk breaking which happens. So if you are talking about reverse logistics, what happens is that while everything is transported into pick-packed cases right from the company, effectively reverse does not come the same way. So effectively, how is your efficiency to pick up a piece level packing at the consumer point and then bringing it back for proper disposal becomes a little bit of a challenge. And how do you sort of put that through a multimodal becomes challenging. So right now, I think multimodal is helpful for the first leg of logistics. It essentially does not add a lot of value in the reverse piece. Where I think we can add value is in terms of finding out on where the wastage of say reverse logistics or as far as product expiry or anything which would effectively result into product not being usable or product need to be brought back to the concerned organization is going to occur. So how do you do those periodic checks at say the consumer points, the channel partners, if there is say some sort of a zonal hub network which can be created in say various I would say states. So there are now partners. We have been working with one such partner who sort of picks up the reverse or product which has been expired right from the distributor point and does that survey and directly disposes it to the closest cement unit. Now what it happens is that the earlier mode of disposal was collating it, bringing it back to our own warehouse, then bringing it back up to our factory, and effectively the weighted average distance was close to about 1500 kilometers. Now just by this simple change, what we have done is that, or the possibility of doing it is by you cut that reverse logistics by say 110. So right now, where my reverse transportation distance was 1500, now I can do it in the same state or similar city in say 150 or 200 kilometers. So I think that's one piece of how reverse logistics can help. The other thing where we can help in terms of looking at is how do you blend the say green financing in terms for organization like CPG, and many people said that, and I also concur with them, that green financing in itself might not help the CPG organizations, but what it can help do is say some of the vendors who sort of invest on our behalf in infrastructure, in capex, and particularly in terms of warehousing or transportation, those vendors can benefit from a blended finance. So one such initiative that we had done in Godrej was tying up with somebody who used to install solar powered panels in the warehouses that we had long-term contracts to. And effectively that helped us indirectly, while the capex initially was invested by the third party or the 3PL, but what it helped us initially brought down the electricity cost, and effectively we had a long-term vision or long-term contract with the concerned vendor, which sort of safeguarded his investment in terms. So I think at the end of the day, from a cost as well as sustainability, it was a win-win. So we'll have to find out those pieces wherein it can serve both purposes in short term and eventually in long term, as is the case with multimodal. I'm sure this is going to be cost efficient as we progress.
Okay. Thank you so much. Ankur, what factors make a sustainable supply chain project attractive in India for international investors?
So I think it's an easy answer for me right now, because what I was talking about in the beginning, right, means there are certain goals which we have also committed as a country, right? So with this Paris Agreement, we have also said that we will going to reduce our carbon footprint by 35% as a country, which will be measured basis on 2005 carbon emission as in baseline, right? So and that's not a small target to achieve. It looks, when you see number of years, but when you see the number of emission which we need to reduce, I think it looks pretty far away right now. And on the other side, I think if we go the second goal, which is net zero by 2070, that is also, a far stretch goal right now. And to achieve that, I think there is a lot of acceleration needed on the ground, beyond institutional companies, beyond institutional infrastructure which is owned by government. But there is a lot more work needed on the ground, on the first mile and the last mile angle, and that is where I think you will definitely need those funds, and that will always be an option for investors to see India as a growing economy, where its largest middle class population is being there. It's growing pretty decent stage right now, and if we compare to other part of the world. The only challenge is the consumer in India should also see that as in value and ready to pay for it, so that at least that investment which is available has some level of value to investors as well. That is how it will be. Right now we are saying green finance is available, but it is available at what cost, right? It is available, and its access is it really available to the people who needs it? Maybe, when we are talking about scope 3 as in reduction, where nobody is looking right now, everybody is focused on their own areas, scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, how much it can help to the people like transporters, maybe the people who are trying to put up some level of solar investment somewhere else. I think that will definitely make India as an area where you will see investment will flow. But consumer preferences slightly needs to be changed in the direction of sustainability, seeing it as in value.
So you are saying the sustainability initiative is not only the company, but even some part consumers should also take into consideration in terms of on costing or pricing.
Yeah.
They should bear that brunt.
You see, nothing is available free, right? Right now we might seeing there is a cost benefit when we are using fossil fuels, right? But it is damaging your climate in another way, right? You are paying in other side of it, when you see a lot of floods being there, you see a lot of other things. So you have to see it as a whole in terms of long-term value. I will not be able to say that right now we are not paying anything when we are going ahead with that. So those perspectives needs to change, those mindsets needs to change, and it's not an easy journey. It takes a lot more time, but I think right now it is coming as in push. You can see that, and furthermore it will get tightened basis on the way regulation is going, and then we see the criticality on the climate side as well. So definitely that push will come in.
Okay. Thank you. Narayan Saab, now we have after this one presentation also, so my two questions to you is,
Sure.
Can you share an ESG initiative by your group that has helped attract green investment? That's number one. Number two question, how important are public-private partnership for your company in scaling green-ready logistic infrastructure in India?
Right. So on the first question, from perspective of attracting green financing, they look at that, have you done, when investing in a particular property, have you actually done a climate assessment? Have you done environmental and social due diligence? So, ESDD, which is environmental social due diligence, is part and parcel of every acquisition, right? And based on the roadmap that we get, whether it's a greenfield project or whether it's a property which is already existing and operational, if it's an existing operational property, then we also put up at the beginning and put up capital allocation for it also, as to how are we going to reduce the carbon footprint over a 3-year period or a 4-year period. So that's there right at the beginning. So that's one part. The biggest one is, I think we are the largest owner of on-site rooftop solar plant, which is invested by us amongst the industrial and logistic parks players. We already have about 16 megawatt operational across different parks. There is 3-4 more which is under construction, and by the end of the year, we are going to have about 30 megawatt. Now that actually results into significant carbon footprint reduction, I would say, and I've always say that it's to be seen more as a carbon footprint reduction than the savings. Savings can vary between state to state because depending on where the tariff is and what the tariff is, right? So that I think this initiative, coupled with other digitization, waste management, etc., is what waste management, water management, rainwater harvesting, and things like that is what the investors actually see, or the financiers actually see, when it comes to giving us green financing. And it's not just at the time of the lending or investing, but it's also on a continuous monitoring basis also. Certification is one, as I said earlier, that all our parks are certified. So these things are something which goes well with the finances. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
PP participation of private.
Yeah, so for us, PPP, while most of all our projects are, basically not from government land, there are some government lands also. But one, we go for environmental approvals, as most projects, real estate projects have to. And there is a certain CER requirement in any case that so much of your project cost must be allocated. So that's one by mandate. And let me tell you, the EC conditions are pretty good. That's how we manage it. But from a PPP perspective, we talked about how do we, scope 1 is fine, scope 2 is fine, but how do you reduce scope 3? You mentioned that it's 70-80%, that's true for us also. When we do our carbon footprint audit, this is what the result comes. So how do we try and reduce that? Now, from our perspective, of course, the way we can do, and where the PPP element comes into picture, is transportation of the employees, of the workers who, not our employees, but tenants' employees. How do they come there? So, we try and work with the local authorities to try and see if there is a transportation, mostly bus, or a public bus stand which can be put. We also try to help that. That's the biggest one. And then secondly, also in terms of our suppliers, we try and develop and encourage local suppliers, for both operational side also as well as during construction side also. We work with, I won't say government, but institutes like CII, Institute of Logistics, and other bodies to try and see that as to what else can be done from a local community perspective, etc., to try and, so that's the PPP element that we try to do.
Thank you so much. We will take question and answer after this one presentation of Mr. 𝐿𝐴𝐚𝐬. We request you to kindly deliver your presentation, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me. I'm associate partner in McKinsey. And so I'm expert of cash excellence and supply chain excellence and working capital optimization. And cash excellence is really important to realize the supply chain, sustainable supply chain, because, for example, one of my clients adopted the early payment program, and at the same time they need the cash. So to realize the sustainable supply chain, cash excellence is really important. And on top of that, in working capital optimization, inventory is also included. And then to realize inventory optimization, we need to visualize inventory and the supply chain. And then in the end, we can realize sustainable supply chain. We are reducing the disposal of the equipment or material and collaboration with suppliers. And so let me share the background. So in Japan, so you might not know, but average stock prices keep lower. On the other hand, in United States and Europe, it continues to grow. So, and at the same time, in Japan, the ROIC is lower than those in the United States and Europe. So it's around 7%. On the other hand, in United States, it's 12%. So there's a strong pressure from market to improve the ROIC. And in Japan, activist fund, so the number of the proposal from active fund is increasing, and there's a strong pressure from the stock exchange market guideline. So currently now we are set high attention on capital cost and cash excellence. And this is the indicator related to capital costs such as ROE, ROIC, and so on. And so the left one is 2018, and the right one is 2023. And the attention to ROE and ROIC has improved drastically in Japan. And in the end, we have achieved a higher ROIC in the past. But so still we have the problem in net working capital. So we need to improve the net working capital. And one of the reasons is in Japan, our interest rate is lower than 1%. So this is a big problem in Japan. And among many industries, cash conversion cycle is worse in those in United States and Europe. Yeah. And then this is a holistic lever to improve the net working capital. And mainly key point is a negotiation. But on top of the negotiation, there are some operational lever and the product design. And I think partially this is a link to the previous discussion. To achieve our good net working capital, we need to realize the lean and sustainable supply chain. And this is entire process of net working capital optimization, including inventory. and from product design to after sales. So we generally conduct negotiation, operation level improvement, and design optimization. And the next section is about working capital optimization project. So the first one is in a company, we conducted a working capital optimization, and our impact is around 670 million. And this client will leverage this cash to introduce the early payment program to supplier who has a higher ESG rating. So cash is, I believe, really important to realize sustainable supply chain. And this was a global program. So we had 900 initiatives and conducted in 15 countries. One of the important things is we conducted more than 100 capability workshops, networking capital workshops. And I think it is really important to nurture and conduct education to working level member to understand the importance of cash and sustainability and so on. And also, we did the inventory optimization, including the digital transformation, and which led a significant business impact. So we collaborated with customer and our client sales division and plant, and we made a co-pilot. So we made a entire dashboard of company. And in the end, we realized a 30% run rate profit uplift, and some. So yeah, we achieved the numbers written here. And this is the image of digitalization. So in headquarters, we can manage the entire inventory-related things. And the sales team can use this dashboard to calculate the future demand and how can we maximize the customer value. And also we can manage the after sales. And in the plant collaboration with sales team, they can use the smart demand forecasting and the digital twin S&OP and so on. And we realized the sales uplift and cost reduction, and also this end-to-end S&OP process make it easier to visualize end-to-end supply chain. And we succeeded in reducing the disposal of inventory, and and also we can monitor all of suppliers' activity. So, for sure, this contributed to sustainable supply chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soshi. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We will take 2 questions. So anyone would like to ask to our esteemed panelist? Yes. Can someone give the mic, please?
Check.
Please say your name and address you want to address to panel or specific.
Can you hear
panelist.
me? Yeah. Firstly, thank you very much to the panelists for great insights. I think great conversation. Also to Mr. 𝐼𝐺𝐻 for great questions. I want to just lift a little bit on maybe what Mr. Ankur Sharma was saying, that how much of these costs can be passed on to the customers, right? Is there a willingness today at all for the customers to bear some of this cost, right? Otherwise, I think at the end of the day, unless the customers really start paying for some of this, it's not going to work. That's at least. And I know that, there could be probably across different industries, different premiums that could be, and a willingness to pay. So just to get a view across all the different panelists if there's any. There's a second part to the question. When you talk about investments in green, do you even consider payback periods? What is the typical payback period that you're looking at? Or sometimes maybe that's just not a consideration. So I'm just curious on how you look at that also. Yeah, my name is Rajat. I'm from Maersk. So it's also good to hear, 𝐂𝐤𝐴, you talk about, you know, the great innovation, I would say, from bringing it from 18 to 15. That's also what we do at Maersk. We save a lot of carbon just by a simple, innovative idea of bringing the temperature up without actually impacting any of the costs, or without impacting the goods on the customer. So yeah, that's my question to anybody who would like to answer on the panel. Thank you.
So I think I've covered up some part of it, which is, I'll come to the second part of it in terms of, you know, the ROI or, you know, the payback which we consider for sustainable. So definitely, yes, you know, any money which you invest, you definitely need to calculate the payback of it. But what is the right period of it? That we never defines, you know. But right now, as a company, I think what we are doing is we have certain goals, which is say 20, 30, certain percentage of targets which we need to do it. And that is where if certain initiatives are filling those objectives which we want to achieve by 2030, which is say from now it is 5-year goal, right? So that's the payback, you know, you look for it. Whether that money which we will achieve, it will help us to deliver the percentage reduction which we are trying to achieve. Second, if you know, there is a cost share model, you know, we are a B2B company right now on the ingredient side, food and pharmaceutical largely. So we are working with one of #1 FMCG company in India. There I think there is a sustainable solution which we have, which they can adopt in terms of, you know, current consumption which they are using of fossil fuel. Rather than that, if they can use something else. And if it makes sense for them and us to invest on those, that type of partnership also we are looking. But there is no ready answer, you know, what is the payback which you are trying to calculate, because if that is being available, you know, it's some point in time makes also easy in terms of, you know, taking those initiatives out and reaching out to partners who can help. But it is basis on the priorities, you know. So right now, if you ask me, we have certain priorities with respect to delivering those 2030 goals, but that is not a force for Indian organization. Even if we are an Indian entity, it's not a force from regulation, but we are bound with certain goals of European companies, right? So that's how I will see it. Yeah. Just one point which I'll make on your first question, which I think I have not covered up in my previous inputs, is on the, you know, realizing the value, you know. So right now we are talking about consumers. That's a last leg, you know, where I think that pinch is much more than what industry can absorb or what institutional consumers can absorb, right? So if you see the certifications which is available in the market, which says, you know, like 𝐒𝐿, your 𝐶EDx or whatever compliance when you go for procuring any goods in the market. But how many companies, when they launch reverse auction, right? So how many companies consider those as in value in terms of, you know, what certification you have? They have that in their bucket list in terms of criteria. But when it comes to the price, when it comes to the paying that check, I think how many companies are ready to consider those things? So that makes very significant, important, paramount right now when we are talking about a lot about sustainability. But are we as an industry, consumers, are ready to pay for it? I think that's a question which stay away. Yeah.
Can
I'll just add in here.
No, okay. No, please. You clear it. Okay.
I'll just add in here, you know, I think logistics being a highly competitive industry from the price sensitivity perspective, And you would agree, being from us, that with a great product like eco delivery also has, its own challenges. So we are all collectively pushing the boundaries, becoming green at our own cost. But then, this collective wisdom of passing it on to the customers and having that willingness to pay an extra penny, I think, especially in a market like ours, it's India in particular, it is, we are far away from that reality.
Can I add to this? I'm Yogendra Bhatt. Regarding this, what we are talking about, the cost, ESG is not the cost, first of all. It is an investment, and it is a regulatory governance. Either you flourish or you perish. So it is a compulsion. There is no question of payback and all that. So if you don't invest, you will be not there at all. And implementation is concerned, there are two types of the implementations are there. One is to sustain your competition to compete with the competitor, and there is a compulsion regulation where you have to have. So ESG is a compulsion. There is no question of payback, and certain things we have to have.
Thank you so much. I think we got a signal for time. Okay.
Just I want to add on to your
Okay.
point. Yeah. Is it okay?
Yeah, please.
So I think what I mentioned also with respect to regulation and compulsion, and that's where I said, once it will come as a compulsion, regulation from government, it will no more be a competitive advantage for any business, right? It will be a compulsion which you require to do it to run the business. And that is where I think right now, if government wants to intend to that direction where they want to channelize this through regulation, right now they have an option to accelerate this movement through, policy interventions where, what they have done is for energy in terms of efficiency, they are giving a lot of credits in terms of, the companies who are using more often renewable energies. Something similar, I think, on the transportation side. If something can be done where, if companies who are paying for it, something similar on the water consumption side can be done, I think it will accelerate that movement. And once that acceleration will happen, I think it will help all of us in that direction.
Just take a last question, please. Already.
Yeah. Thank you, panelists, for making us aware about the green finance. Here, I would like to share a small success story and how what all the points covered by Ankur and the panelists majorly are to be considered. We, being a manufacturer, Siemens, recently worked on the scope 3 emission point where, as Sir rightly said, that the transportation of the employees, thereby we have converted the buses and into electric transportation. That initiative Siemens has already been taken. And recently we, with one of the best service provider with us, I am not, I have to take the name that TCI's came up and helped us in converting 2 8-tonner electric diesel vehicle into the electric vehicles. And with that, we have made a story wherein the electric trucks are running between the corridor defined, where the charger, as we being a manufacturer of charger, one of again the team presenting and in the next panelist he'll be there. The FM has purchased a charger from Siemens. We have taken a trucks from TCI. TCI has converted those trucks into the retrofitted mechanism from Kalyani. And this camaraderie, this collaboration is now the trucks are plying between Navi Mumbai to Bhiwandi. So my question to you all is whether the subsidy will play a role here or the finance is the only option.
Maybe I can attempt to answer that. So I think there are a lot of spaces, I would say opportunities that lie. Say, for example, I represent also ports and terminal industry. So the government has given opportunities in the Harit Sagar guidelines on incentivization of sustainable ports basis, certain targets on water, waste, energy and all of that. But there is an ambiguity in terms of how much incentives. And I think this is what needs to be channelized through right policy interventions, because there is a lot of ambiguity. But I think you are right, incentives can play a huge role in pushing the agenda further.
Thank you, Akansha. So
Thank
my
you.
closing remark is what Mr. Ganesh from McKinsey said. The global economy is about $80 trillion, and we require around $3 to $4 trillion to have this initiative. So eventually, in so many years, all the global governments will try to find out a way out. But this is the broad picture, what Mr. Ganesh has said, $3 to $4 trillion is the fund required in next 5-10 years to come to this conclusion. Thank you so much.